Lee Drumdums, who also founded with Marianne Neal the Killer Flicks Facebook page. He did a tag, came up with a tag over on that page. What he did is he got the members of Killer Flicks to come up with questions, and then he tagged 4 people, one of them being moi. Thank you, Lee. So I'm going to do the tag. I've got the questions here on a piece of paper because, quite frankly, there ain't no way in hell I'm remembering them all in order, so I will be looking at this from time to time. All of these questions were from members of Killer Flicks. Like I say, if you don't know Killer Flicks by now, then do go on over to that Facebook page. It's people talk horror all day, every day, as Lee likes to say, and on Fridays anything goes. But really good community for the most part. Not too many dramas, unless you want to count the ice cream truck. But moving on. So the first question is by Matt Festle, and it is: who is your favourite vampire character, or performance, or both? And I gotta say, I have to go with Severin from Near Dark, played by Bill Paxton. I reviewed Near Dark on my channel just after Bill Paxton died because, that role really struck me when I watched it all those years ago. It's a great vampire film, in my top 5 easily, but a large part of that is down to Bill Paxton. His character in this film is absolutely off the wall crazy. For me, exactly how a vampire should be. None of this Twilight nonsense. Brutal, bloody. I like the vampires in 30 Days of Night, but I just think what Bill Paxton does with this role is just something else entirely. Lance Henriksen as well in that film is pretty damn cool. Question 2 from Mason Lake is: what is the first killer flick to open your eyes to the world of horror movies? It's Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors. I remember being over at my uncle's house, and he'd got Sky TV. He was like one of the first people to get Sky. He's like very, very big on getting whatever the latest gadgets and things are. I'm not that technologically minded, it all goes over my head, but he was one of the first people to get Sky TV, and I remember just being like really excited by the fact that they just had movies on television, like take your pick. You didn't have to wait for a very specific time or for one that was scheduled in the week. No, just a whole stream of movies. And A Nightmare on Elm Street was on there, Part 3. My mum went to talk to my aunt in the kitchen and didn't know that my dad, God rest his soul, had left us. Well, had let us, I should say, not left us. He was there with us, but he let us watch A Nightmare on Elm Street, Dream Warriors, and safe to say I didn't sleep much that night. Not without the light on, anyway. I can tell you that much. I would have been, I think, about 6 years old. So that was the first like proper horror movie that I watched. So and it stuck with me as well. Took a long time to go back and revisit that, because that's the bit with the veins when he's using a guy like a marionette. That was just embedded in my mind for years, and I stayed away from the film because of it. And then when I went back to it as an adult, I was just like, oh, okay, really tame now. It's just the way it is. When you're a kid, things just affect you differently. Or some kids. I know some kids just don't seem to faze them, which is quite worrying. Question 3 is by Jake Kulkowski. Sorry if I'm butchering your name there, mate. And it's: what is your favourite, or what is a really good geographical location for a horror film? And he gives the example of Antarctica from The Thing, which I think is probably the one I would have gone with. It's the most obvious. I think any location in a horror film that isolates your central characters, that kind of separates them from any other people, kind of puts them on their own. I think that is a good location. I think of the Overlook Hotel in The Shining. You know, even something like The Lift. Sorry for you American brethren, The Elevator. In Devil. You know, there's the M. Night Shyamalan scripted film Devil, which I thought was quite an effective little thriller, to be honest. But yeah, so anywhere like that, really. So I think I'd probably go with the Overlook Hotel in The Shining, but definitely Antarctica in The Thing. Hospitals good. Think of Halloween 2, I should say. Yeah, they're really effective because they're just dark. No one wants to be in a hospital to begin with, so the moment you're stuck in one with no one else around except a serial killer, that's pretty much going to push some buttons, isn't it? Question 4 by Dylan Clancy is, what horror movies or horror movie are you embarrassed about liking or loving? And there isn't any. You know, if I ever like something or I don't, and if I do, I sure as hell am not going to be embarrassed by it. I will defend it to my death. Critters. Love that film. Question 5 is by Nick Puccia, and he asks, what is your favourite killer flick based on a true story, and how accurate do you think it is? My favourite would be Zodiac, which is directed by David Fincher. It is about the Zodiac killer, and it probably sits more along the lines of thriller than killer. I don't know, but you know, it's about a killer, a real life killer, and there are 2 really nasty scenes in it in which we see the killer going about his work. Yeah, I mean, those scenes alone, I think, make it ample enough to be regarded as a horror film of some description. But it's based on a true story, and I know for a fact that David Fincher really did his research on it. It's based on a book by a guy who basically tried to find out, and probably succeeded in finding out the identity of the Zodiac killer. Now I do know that there is a section of this film when one of the murders happens where David Fincher imported a tree. You know, they filmed at the actual location, but the tree that was there back when the murder happened was no longer there. So they imported a tree that was of the same kind. That's how committed Fincher was to making this thing feel authentic. And if you've seen the film, you'll know that he succeeded big time. Question 6 is from Cody Archer. I'm going to read it because I'm a bit muddled on it. Sorry, mate. I'm not quite sure I get your question so much. It says, what director would you like to see crossover franchises and make a killer flick? Example, Rob Zombie doing a Friday the 13th. So do you mean crossover 2 horror franchises? Or do you mean a director crossing over to the horror kind of genre? I'm guessing you mean the former, because obviously Rob Zombie's already done Halloween, so I'm assuming by that you mean get him to do Friday the 13th and cross it over with Halloween. I could be wrong, but Christopher Nolan. It may sound like a bit of a wacky choice given the kind of films he makes, but I think of all the modern filmmakers we have, he is most like Stanley Kubrick. He's very much inspired by Stanley Kubrick. In fact, a lot of his work, you can see that particularly with Interstellar. You know, he's just done a war film. Look at Kubrick when he did Full Metal Jacket and a couple of the other war films he did. So yeah, at some point I would like to see Nolan branch out into horror. Whether he crosses a couple of franchises over, obviously that's very doubtful. He tends to do very original material, but I'd like to see him go into horror, because yeah, when Kubrick went into horror, we got one of the best horror films ever made. So let's see what happens when Nolan does the same. With regards to what franchises he would do if he was going to cross them over, I don't know. Probably something a bit more cerebral rather than hack and slash. So question 7 is from Jason Miller, and he asks, what killer flick was the toughest to watch? And he does cite Audition as an example. Audition is definitely on my list. That film was pretty traumatic because I thought I was watching a bit of a romantic drama. It was on late one night, put it on, didn't know what it was, never heard of it, and yeah, it's going along. I'm like, oh, this is actually quite nice, you know. I want to see where this relationship goes. Older man, younger woman, and then yeah, where it goes is in body parts being taken off with piano wire, and I was just, yeah, I couldn't unsee it. That's the thing. So that's definitely a good choice. I'm gonna just quickly look at my list. Hostel is another one. I don't really ever want to see that film again. I don't like that kind of movie, to be honest, when it's just literally seeing people being butchered without any real chance of escape or salvation. It's not my bag. The whole torture porn thing, not my bag. Another one is Irreversible, and that's a film I've not seen. I've seen literally about 3 minutes of it, and I think it was the opening from the film. I think it's how the film opens. A guy goes into this nightclub and then he smashes someone's head in with a fire hydrant thing, and that was it. I was out. Nope, gone. Knowing the fact that, you know, later on in the film there is a rape scene that apparently goes on for quite a while and is pretty brutal, I figured, you know what, with the level of violence that he's just treated this opening with this guy getting his head smashed in, not sure I want to go all the way to the rape scene, so that's it. Turn it off, wasn't interested, and I don't think I will ever be. Question 8 is by Esther Meeks, and she asks, who is your favourite killer flick final girl? For me, it is Erin from You're Next, played by Shani Vinson. It just flips the whole final girl thing on its head, you know. I mean, there are final girls who do fight back. You know, you think of Sidney Prescott and Jamie Lee Curtis and all that lot, but they're in survival mode the whole time. You know, they're trying to get away, and sometimes get quite hysterical. But Erin in You're Next, it's just a complete about turn. Basically, they messed with the wrong chick. You know, they go in to try and invade this house, to try and kill everyone, and they just pick the wrong girl to mess with. Basically, she's a survivalist. And she turns the tables and just nails all these guys, and it's just real fun to see. So yeah, she's a final girl, and probably for me my favourite, particularly in recent memory at any rate. Gabriella Caper and Lamont Smith ask, which killer flick has scarred you for life? None have scarred me for life. There are some I won't go back to. I mean, like I say, I think Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 had a pretty long run where I was just like, it did kind of scar me, but like I say, I went back to it. As an adult, things change, you know. As a kid, they hit you in a particular way, but when you go back and face your fears as an adult, you realise there's not really that much to be afraid of. But there are still horror films, killer flicks, that have hit me quite hard. In most recent memory, I would say The Conjuring. I'm not really into films of a spiritual nature, demons, that kind of thing. It's a bit too close to home for me. That got me. That made me kind of check behind every closet and door and whatnot for a few days. It Follows, I think. It Follows, I would say, is the best horror film of the last 20 years, but I've only seen it once. And it's just, sometimes films hit you, you know, they have an impact, and then you go back and you watch them, as I've already just said, and then the impact's gone. And I'm worried that would be the same thing with It Follows, and I kind of want to keep that. You know, I want to be able to hold on to that, how I felt or how I feel still even now after having seen that film that one time. And I feel like it may be ruined if I go back and watch it, because I'll know what's coming, I'll be prepared for it. I don't know, maybe not. One day, I think I maybe probably will go back to it. I just don't think it's going to be anytime soon. But yeah, that film had quite an impact on me. And obviously the one I've already talked about, Audition, that definitely had an impact. That's not a film I want to see again either. Like I say, it's not scarred me for life or anything, but I fell out with it. Question 10 is from Erica Kirchenbauer. Again, apologies if I butchered that. And she asks, which killer flick has the most killer soundtrack? I think the obvious choice is probably Halloween. You know, it tends to be the go-to one for a lot of people. Just the simplicity of that score by John Carpenter, it's just memorable. You know, even when I'm not thinking about Halloween, it can just pop into my head at random moments. I think It Follows had some good music in there. There's one particular track off that I have by Disaster Piece that I thought is a really good track. But the album overall, when you listen to it outside the context of the film, it's not quite as good as it is within the context of the film. I think another one would obviously be Bernard Herrmann's Psycho score. That's one for the ages, really. Pretty much kind of set the standard for slasher film scores, you know. So yeah, there's a few. I think the soundtrack to The Guest is pretty killer as well. I know The Guest isn't an out-and-out horror film, it's more thriller, but there is a slasher element to it. It does have that 80s horror vibe to it, and I think the soundtrack is pretty damn entertaining. DJ Castano asks question 11, which is, what is the best kill out of any killer flick? I think I have to go with the shower scene out of Psycho. Not because it's, you know, like by today's standards, it's not like super gory or funny or anything like that, you know. There are a lot more that I would say are probably more entertaining, but I just think Alfred Hitchcock, he set the bar, didn't he, with this film? Psycho in general, he set the bar with it, and this scene was brilliantly edited to make people think they'd seen more than they actually had. And even now, it still looks pretty good. It's still a very well edited, very well orchestrated scene. It's very memorable, you know, it sticks in the mind. Question 12 is by Jason Smith, and he asks, what is the best performance from a killer flick? Cody Leach, when he did his, he mentioned Kathy Bates in Misery. I think that's definitely a great performance. Nominated, I think she got nominated for an Oscar for that. I could be wrong. For some reason, I'd like to say she did. But Jack Nicholson, obviously, in The Shining. I mean, I think a lot of people would just argue that's Jack Nicholson just being full tilt Jack Nicholson, but full tilt Jack Nicholson is pretty damn good. Also, again, Psycho, I think what Anthony Perkins did with Norman Bates was really good and unexpected, because he just plays him as pretty shy, kind of awkward guy who, has a bit of a dark secret. Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter, but from Silence of the Lambs, I must say Ted Levine as Buffalo Bill, seriously underrated. When people talk about Silence of the Lambs, their go-to guy is Hannibal Lecter, is Anthony Hopkins. But for me, in that film, Ted Levine was always more real to me, you know, less theatrical, less flamboyant, just really damaged goods, you know. Some of the stuff he does as an actor is very committed, you know, tucking your bits between your legs, and that you know, that scene. Who wants to do that as an actor? Who wants to put themselves out there like that as an actor? You know, as great as Hopkins is, I think to some extent he got off a bit easy, and I think Ted Levine gets seriously underappreciated for that film. So yeah, Ted Levine, Silence of the Lambs. Question 13 is by Justin Adams, and he asks, what location from a killer flick would you like to visit? I'd probably say the Overlook Hotel from The Shining. I think they did a lot of interiors themselves, you know, studio stuff, but the exterior is definitely real, so to speak. It's still in existence. I just think it's such an awesome horror film. I'm not really into visiting locations, if I'm being perfectly honest. It's not something that kind of jumps out at me. You know, I'm more interested in meeting people. I'm more interested in meeting the people who were on the film, who helped to make it, who have stories. You know, they can tell me a story about the making of the film, about that process. Whereas the location, yeah, you know, I get it. I get why people do it. I think there is that emotional tie, isn't there, to the places we see in movies. But for me, it's just never really been that big a thing. I can't say I've gone out of my way to visit any locations from movies, but if I had to, if you know, if someone gave me the choice, I could beam there right now, I'd say, yeah, take me to the Overlook. A final question 14, which is from actress Deborah Voorhees from Jason Lives. Yeah, she asks, is there any killers from killer flicks that you feel sympathy for, that you sympathise with? And I think there's probably a few. Cody, again, he took Norman Bates, so I won't go with that. But I'd go with Francis Dalahide from Red Dragon and Manhunter. I think Manhunter's the better version of that film. But he's very dark, and a lot of what he does is, you know, can you call it evil? It is certainly off the wall crazy, but there are moments. Michael Mann and Tom Noonan, they find ways in that film to inject a bit of humanity into that character. And you know, when he meets the woman, the blind woman, there is hope there. For the briefest of moments, there is hope that he's going to stop doing what he's been doing, that the love of this woman will be enough to change him. But in the end, he's just too crazy. He's, you know, the wiring up there is just gone, and that's what makes me sympathise with it. This fact that deep down in there somewhere there is someone who does want to be good, who just wants to be loved. You know, because this all starts from an abusive parent background, and you know, the scarring on his face. He doesn't believe he can be loved, and that's created something of a split in his mind. And that makes me sympathise with it. You know, I'm not sure I could call him evil. He's definitely cracked. There's no doubt about that. And what he does is evil. But him as a person, as a character, yeah, there are times when I sympathise with him. And I just think, actually, if he'd had just had a different upbringing, or you know, if people had just shown him a bit more love, a bit more attention, positive attention, yeah. Francis Dalahide from Manhunter. Okay, so there you go. That is my edition of the Killer Flicks tag, and now it just leaves me to tag someone. I'm going to tag Jambo Shango and the Randy Mole. They've changed their channel name recently. It used to just be Jambo Shango, now it's Jambo Shango and the Randy Mole. Two guys, really great British guys, who, yeah, they just chill out on a couch and talk about movies, and they do it in a really funny, really entertaining way. So if you've not checked out their channel, please do so. Yeah, this tag is over to you guys. I'm also going to tag my Brits on Flicks partner in crime, just in case you thought you'd escaped, Graham. You haven't. Killer Flicks tag, you're on, mate. Other than that, that's everything I have to say here. Thank you for watching. Please do comment below, let me know what you thought about any of my answers, and please do give me your own to these questions. And until next time, crack it.